Okay, welcome everybody. Let's call the meeting to order. 4:30 p.m. on the dot. And I'm hearing some feedback. If somebody's got a speaker on or something that's close to the mic.
Tim, we can't hear you. There you go.
How about now?
Now we can hear you.
Yeah, that's weird. I had it clicked on, but anyhow, so welcome. Let's call the meeting to order here. And are there any agenda amendments at this point? No amendments? Then we'll proceed with the agenda as published. The first item is to approve the minutes from July 20th, which all of you should have received in your packet. Any additions or corrections to the minutes?
I just have it where we talked about the studio crawl. It's the first weekend, not the first week.
First weekend.
Yeah, it says first week in October. It's the first weekend in October.
Weekend. Okay, so we should make that adjustment in the minutes. Would you care to approve the minutes with the correction, Dennis?
Yes, I'll approve the.
Or you'll move? Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor of approving the minutes as corrected, signify by.
I'll do a roll call.
Roll call?
Yes.
Wollenzine?
Yes.
Jones? Jones?
Yes.
Winterstein?
Yes.
Williams?
Yes.
Selzvold?
Yes.
Okay, minutes are approved. And the next item is the citizens to be heard. And I see we have Gia with us at this point. Welcome to you. And we have you on the agenda for a little bit later. So if you don't mind just hanging out here waiting, is that all right? Okay. Any other citizens to be heard that are with us today that would like to be heard?
I think we have a caller. I'm hoping it's Maxine. So
It is I.
So I think we're good on nobody's calling in for the citizens to be heard.
Okay. Then we will proceed to the first item under reports and information, which is an update on the arts from Maxine Adams, who's the executive director of the Lake Region Arts Council. And if that's you on the phone there, Maxine, we'd sure like to welcome you to our meeting here today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the ability to call in, and the only thing I miss is seeing your smiling faces and getting to visit with everybody, but that's not our world right at the minute. So I talked a little bit with Kim earlier and responded to her request to come and talk a little bit about maybe what's going on beyond the borders of Moorhead, and how communities are dealing with the pandemic and the arts. And I wish I had more encouraging news in some respects. It's hard when people can't gather in larger numbers, and we're having to be so careful about health concerns. Although people, I think, are becoming more and more needing art activities to be able to get out and resume their socializing around arts performances and events is something I think everybody would love to do. When I did talk with Kim earlier, we talked a little bit about responsibility for arts organizations or anybody that's planning arts activities. She shared with me that Moorhead's Park and Rec have not scheduled anything for the future. And that's in line with most communities that I'm aware of. Some arts organizations or artist groups have been doing events in a variety of different ways, and some of them this last week have actually done gallery tours. Not gallery tours, but artist studio tours. And I'm not sure how that worked, and I get a little uneasy about folks' liability when they do events that may or may not follow all of the COVID guidelines as well as they should. So I guess if you had some particular questions, I could try and answer them, but most responses have been very specific to that organization or that event or that community, and there isn't any really broad answers that anybody has come up with so far. So was there anything particular that you guys wanted to talk about this evening?
Well, just from my perspective, and maybe others are thinking this too, but what's happening with granting, with re-granting of funds from other organizations and that kind of thing? Is that going to proceed as customarily does this time of year, or what's up with it?
Yeah, what I can talk about is the State Arts Board and the Regional Arts Councils, and this stems from COVID again, but a large part due to the impact on the state's economy. Almost all of the funding for the state or the Regional Arts Council comes from tax dollars collected. And if you've been following the projected reports about the state's economy, they're pretty grim. Was just on a call last week with Sue Jens, the director of the State Arts Board. We have been confirmed that the legacy funding is the amount that they told us it would be, which is roughly just under 15% than last year. We do get a general appropriation that would require the legislature to approve a budget for FY21 for that particular set of expenditures in the state. They would have to call a special session right now to do that. They are not going to, as far as we can tell, do that until after the election. And it may not even get called then. It may be handed off to the new legislative session. And generally, if that happens, it's not till the end of session, which is like May, before they will approve that budget. That would mean right now we have been awarded roughly 25% of what that budget is, which is and this would be mostly for the project grants that we do. So I am not sure at the moment we will have funding for all of the project grants, and it may affect our fall project grant round too. So that pot of money, nobody knows, and we don't know when we're going to get it. The legacy funds, we will get the amount, but it's going to be spread out over 6 months worth of payments to us. So we have to watch our cash flow fairly close to make sure we're covering our own expenses and not awarding more legacy funds than we actually have money to pay for at that time. So that's kind of as we go figuring stuff out. Because of all this financial uncertainty this year, at least for the fall grant rounds, which would include project and legacy grants, they will not be open to non-arts organizations or public entities, which would include cities. It's only arts organizations because we don't know how much money we're going to have to award. And there is no money in the budget this year for a city grant like we did before, the $10,000 grant. That would not come back until FY22. So that's a little less happy than we'd like it to be. The State Arts Board has also restricted their grants to arts organizations only this year. So it's belt tightening, and I'm not sure how cities are working with their art projects that they wanted to do.
Hey, Maxine, this is
yeah.
This is Jeremiah Jones. So one of the things that we're starting to see in corporations nationwide is there's a food distribution company. They're not just looking at 2020. They're already saying everything from budget cuts to equipment rollbacks to a lot of different things they were even going to do in not only just 2020, but also 2021. Do you foresee the state trying to, even though they're saying there's no more money this year, are they also possibly going to try doing this next year as well, saying there's no money because of COVID?
Everything the state does depends on the budget forecast that the state does. I think it's every quarter, if not it's every 6 months. They won't make any kind of decisions until those budget forecasts come in. And so it would depend on those. And with the election right now, they're not wanting to respond to the last budget forecast until after the elections. So in answer to your question, I think the impact is going to be felt much beyond the next 12-month cycle, yes. But I can't definitely tell you that because the state doesn't run on my intuition, it runs on their budget forecast. And certainly I know many of the arts organizations are looking at a longer cycle of dealing with the stuff they have to deal with beyond the next 12 months. They're hopeful for next fall, but there's so many moving parts right now. Is there going to be a vaccine? Are we going to have therapeutics that will help? How are the public going to react? Will we have once the kids get back to school, are we going to have a uptick in cases? I don't know. No, nobody knows. My two favorite responses anymore are, I don't know, and well, let's try it and see what happens. There's so much uncertainty, it's hard to plan. So can anybody tell me what Sue Leggett's work with, Kim, if you're on the line, help me again with the name of what she was working on, if that happened or got postponed.
She was working on Creative Moorhead, and I think Tim is active in that organization, so he might be able to share a little bit.
I can share a little bit. That was an event that was being planned by a group of Moorhead artists and arts patrons early last spring, like in the winter and spring. It started out, met a few times until we had to start doing things virtually, and they were putting together a day of arts celebration in Moorhead, where there was going to be a day-long series of performances and demonstrations and open studios and poetry and all kinds of things. And it was hopefully going to be something that could continue on into the future, but there was a donor that was active in kind of moving it forward in a short time period because they just wanted to get something going that could be a celebration of Moorhead art or arts and the artists in Moorhead, as well as arts organizations that are already in existence in Moorhead, including those at the college and university level. And so they were trying to we were trying to put something together in early May, a day-long celebration, and that was kind of where we were until we, hit the brick wall of COVID by mid-March, and then the conversation was that there had been quite a bit of enthusiasm from the arts community in Moorhead as this kind of kicked off, and they didn't want to just put that down and say, oh well, I guess we have to wait till next year. So yep. there was then a kind of an altered procedure from there that led to submissions of video recorded art, either performances or a walk through a studio or a demonstration of an artistic process, a story, a video, whatever that happened to be. And then those were submitted and published on Facebook. And the artists were given a stipend for participating and for submitting. And there were some guidelines as far as length, and I don't remember all the details. Since then, the group has been relatively inactive, but there are still some things being posted on the Facebook page. So that's what I can tell you at this point.
I don't know if the Arts Commission would have an interest in being kind of a convener for your community, where the folks that are active, like Carrie at Theater B, Maureen over at the Historical Center, if they're doing some arts programming, Jonathan at the Rourke, just for those folks to talk to each other about what they're doing and seeing if they can leverage partnerships. That might be one way the city could help move some art stuff forward just by facilitating communication. I don't know if Carrie is on the phone, if those groups are talking to each other at the present time, then maybe you don't need to, but I don't know, Carrie, does that sound helpful?
I think locally groups are talking to each other somewhat. There's quite a mix, I think, of organizations that are serving in that convener purpose. Okay. So at least for me, I'm getting a lot of information from, both the Lake Region Arts Council and the North Dakota Council on the Arts, and then the Moorhead Business Association and the Chamber, and the Arts Partnership, and so there's sort of this mixture of commercial and foundation and other sort of consortiums that are getting a fair amount of information out there. I know the Minnesota Theater Alliance has been doing convenings certainly for theater groups that are all over the state. But there hasn't been necessarily, I think it would be worth asking, I guess, if there are Moorhead organizations or even individual artists who could use more of an opportunity to talk with one another. And that is a way that this group could probably be of service.
Yep.
I just know that personally, I have lots of information and these opportunities coming to me. And so I don't have a sense of that being a gap, but others may.
Yeah, because I know you're doing some really creative responses to what you're doing. The Rourke is also, yeah, I don't know kind of where you're at in Moorhead with that, but that's about all the news I've got to share, or explanations about the money we don't have. Were there other questions?
Any other questions from anyone, or things that you're thinking about? What about a piece of good news here before we go? What gives you hope and optimism about this situation?
Oh, I love you for asking that question. Thank you. I think it is two things. The willingness of people to help somebody else through this, whether that's showing up to volunteer, whether that is sharing information, or just being very generous with positive feedback and pats on the back. That, I think, will get us through an awful lot of this messy, depressing stuff. And the other is that I know the arts are the sector that has the creative people with imagination and long-range thinking that will, at the least, get the arts through this and help other folks get through this too. I've so many times myself and other people that I've talked to is just, oh, if we could just hear music again, or go to a movie, or, you know, all of those things that we were used to doing and kind of took for granted has taken on a really special meaning. The format that's going to be presented in, whether that's virtual or not, I don't know. We're still figuring that out. But those, to me, are the good news things. I've just been so heartwarmed by the kindness and generosity of people during this whole 6-month journey. So I hope you guys have experienced some of that too.
I think so, and I hope so, and I think, you know, artists and appreciators of art are certainly not unfamiliar with hard times. I mean, that's kind of you know, inherent in the work that we do. So so I appreciate that, and that's, you know, something to hold on to, but perhaps also something to you know, to make sure that we are connecting with each other and that we are supporting our other organizations and individuals in the community as well. We're not going to go away. We're not going to dry up and, you know, wither completely. Yep. So.
Exactly.
Well, if there's nothing else from the commission members here today, I just want to thank you for taking the time to visit with us and to bring us the latest updates. And that's we'll look forward to hearing from you again in the future, and move ahead. And we know that we're all in this together, right?
Yeah. Fortunately or unfortunately, yes. And thank you again to you and the members of the commission for all that you are doing to make sure the arts thrive, not only in Moorhead, but in the region too. We can't do that work without you. Thank you. And Kim, thank you always to Kim. She's such a good person to work with. I appreciate her tremendously.
Yeah, we're fortunate to have her. Thanks again, Maxine. And
you guys take care.
All right, you too.
Bye-bye.
Okay, moving on to through our agenda here, we have Gia Rassier with us today to talk a little bit about the Public Arts Geocache project. So welcome to you, Gia, and go ahead and give us some updates on what's going on in your world.
Sure. Yeah, so I'm Gia. I live in Moorhead. I love Moorhead. I love the arts, and I'm also an avid geocacher. So if you're not familiar with geocaching, depending on who you ask, geocaching is a game, a hobby, or some of us consider it a sport. But it relies on GPS coordinates to find hidden objects. So my goal is to make Fargo-Moorhead the geocaching capital of the Midwest. And I started last fall by partnering with the Fargo-Moorhead Visitor Center to create the first official geotour in the state of Minnesota and North Dakota. So since we launched in September, we've had hundreds of people from around the world complete the tour, which is pretty cool. But a lot of geocachers will actually plan their travels around where they can find specific geocaches, especially geotours. So with social distancing kind of slated to continue for the foreseeable future, geocaching and similar activities have seen a huge spike in popularity just because it's a way to get people outside doing something. It's easy to practice social physical distancing. So what I'm working on right now is something called Adventures, which is a component of geocaching. But unlike traditional geocaching, Adventures don't require a physical container, and so they can even be located indoors. So far, I've launched 5 different adventures in the Fargo-Moorhead area, including one I'm on the park board in Moorhead. So I launched one in collaboration with Moorhead Parks and Recreation for National Parks and Recreation Month in July. And then most recently, on Saturday, I launched 2 tours in downtown Fargo that feature art, like all the murals and stuff that are downtown. So with Greater Moorhead Days scaled back a lot, we want to put out another adventure focusing on Moorhead. And we thought you guys would be a good group to talk with and kind of pick your brain about hidden gems in the community that might make sense to bring people to on an adventure.
That sounds really interesting. Does anybody have any experience with geocaching? Okay, that's unanimous. I don't either, but it is intriguing. So for those of us who are really, obviously not real familiar with the whole idea, what do you need to do to become active in geocaching? I mean, do you have to buy something? Do you have to go someplace? Do you have to take training? I mean, is it easy, simple download, or what do we have to do?
Pretty simple. It's just a free app. You create an account and that's pretty much all you have to do. I should have said, so geocaches are intended to be placed in locations where there's something unique. So maybe a mural or some sort of historical significance. It's supposed to bring you to a place and kind of teach you about that place. So that's something that I think is super cool about geocaching, because when I've traveled, and even honestly in Fargo-Moorhead, and I've lived here for over a decade, I found so many places that I never would have found because of geocaching. In Moorhead, I have a garden, or one at the Styx Garden, in between M&H and Ace, and it's like such a random spot for such a cool little garden, but I have a geocache that was poured into the bench that's there, and I get so many comments from people that are like, I never would have stopped here, but it's something that they went to specifically because there's a geocache there.
Well, if you're looking for something like specifically to try and get more people to go around, I see pros and cons into it. I've heard of geocaching in Pacific Northwest, where I'm from. It's intended to be for everyone to get out there. What I've heard over in like Seattle, certain places have been vandalized because they use geocaching. Yeah, I know that's not the intention, but I would definitely say, if we were thinking about places that make Moorhead what they are, the tree there at Concordia, that is definitely one that most people know who have lived in breathed in Moorhead. Even when I first moved here, I actually rented a house right across the street from it, and I couldn't believe what it was. And you'd always see people there taking pictures, senior pictures, wedding photos. And then the other one is the, and of course I always butcher it, but the sailboat inside.
Comst.
Yes, sorry, I don't even attempt to say it anymore because I always butcher it. But the sailboat holds a very significant. It represents a good portion of the community's cultural history. It's to me those are two most iconic. Other than that, the more recent, up to date stuff would be like one of the original Dairy Queens. It's the original Dilly Bar here, and they actually have a little sculpture of the Dilly Bar sitting out there. Those are kind of what I see when you try and look back at through arts, and especially when you come and look back at some of the paintings that some of our high schoolers just recently did and submitted to us. That is what they see when they look at Moorhead. The sailboat, the tree, Dairy Queen, and then just certain structures around town that have been here for years, way before I was ever here. So.
Comment, vandalism can be an issue. I mean, like anything. With the Geo Tour, I've had some vandalism, but it's not really like, so people that don't geocache are called muggles. And so when a cache, I haven't had any like vandalism, but I've had things go missing. But the cool thing about adventures is there's no physical container. So it's just bringing you to a location. So one of the spots that we have on the Moorhead Parks and Rec.
Right. No, my only concern was as the tree gets older, and I know there's stewards around that live by the tree. They even recommend people not to climb the tree anymore because it is getting older. That's what I worry about. We bring more attention to the tree, and it's not necessarily the people that respect the idea. It's those individuals that came along that turn around and don't respect the idea. And so I'm at 50-50 that would say the tree would be a good idea. To me, it's a living organism, so you got to respect it enough to try to know that it is. But I don't know. That's how I feel about it. It's just I see something living and I want to respect it, but I know not everyone. Some people want to go touch it, and that's usually what happens in Yellowstone, and that's why we always hear about people in Yellowstone. They want to go touch the fluffy cows, and that's not a good thing. So, so that's just my only deal. It's just I worry about if we do put that in part of the adventure, that it could potentially to somebody taking a souvenir, so to speak.
Gia, remind me, when you develop an adventure, is that something that you were envisioning being like within walking distance of the different destinations? Or is this something where you would envision more of a city tour of destinations where people would drive instead of walk?
So I do think that people prefer adventures that are walkable, just because if you're not familiar with an area, it's kind of a pain to try and figure out parking. The initial one that we did for Parks and Rec, it does require some driving just because it's at a bunch of different locations. The other 4 that I've done are all walkable. And people those ones people seem to like just because they don't have to do as much driving, but it could be either.
If I can chime in here. One is that I think in my understanding of geocaching, and I tried it a long time ago, was that you would get little trinkets. You would find little trinkets, right? You'd take something and leave something, but now you're just locating interesting objects or interesting places now. And don't forget the Berquist cabin. Nope, everybody seems to forget that one. It's kind of neat to see. The other, I came across a book and I enjoy this type of thing. It was basically architectural gems in the city of Moorhead. It was certain houses that had an architectural flavor to them that was unique or something. So all you're doing is finding addresses and looking at them, and then if there's information about that type of architecture, that's things I like to do. I've done the walking tour of Fargo and we talk about all the buildings and so on. So.
Gia, is there a, obviously we do this during the summer, spring and stuff. Is there a way to possibly incorporate that for an adventure for wintertime? When I first moved here, I heard about a particular street that would around and would be like lit up with Christmas lights and the whole 9 yards. And since I've been here, I think I've only seen that street really lit up once or twice. Where I'm from in our small little town in Eastern Oregon, they would actually be particular houses and you would get a list. You could go look at the particular house. Is there a way to do an adventure for someone who's really overblown their house to go look at it during wintertime, so to speak?
Yeah, absolutely. That would be a possibility for the future. The contact that I have at geocaching headquarters has said, and you could do one adventure that just goes for a very short amount of time. With this one for Greater Moorhead Days, I think we were thinking something that would last for 1 year, and then with the possibility to renew it if we wanted. But yeah, absolutely, and that would be a great way to kind of get people out and do something specific during a time frame, like an event or holiday spirit type thing.
So if we were going to, do something that was specifically around, centered around arts, I mean, I certainly think that the whole idea of the architectural tour is a good piece of that. But then would we do things that would lead us to, say, to the Rourke or to the Theater B or to, the university's performing arts centers, what is that something is kind of what you're envisioning here with that?
Yeah, I mean, I guess in my head, I was thinking it would be cool to do a little bit of history and a little bit of art. Something that I've been trying to do with the adventures is put them in places that are accessible at all times. Like just with COVID and a lot of businesses and galleries and things having different hours or like by appointment only, trying to bring people to sculptures. Like for example, at Concordia, right outside the theater, there's squares and symmetry art piece. And so I bring people to that sculpture, and then I talk about the theater behind that sculpture. So not trying to actually get people to like go into Theater B, but I mean, if there was something near Theater B or near the Rourke, doing something with the bison out there or at the Styx Garden, and then talking about the Rourke, you could totally do that.
Kim, or Gia, I should say, Kim can help you with this. A year or so ago, we had a group of outstanding students from Concordia putting together a arts mapping project that this Culture Commission was a big part of just kind of encouraging that to happen. Kim, can you maybe connect Gia with some of that resulting output that came out of that? Because I think that'll give you a surplus of ideas and locations. If those students really scouted out locations, they scouted out history, they created a whole website of fascinating arts and culture areas in the city. So I think that might be a valuable resource for you. And Kim has, I'm sure somewhere in our reading notes, that website link or information about how to find out about it.
Yeah, that sounds awesome and exactly what I'm looking for.
I love this idea. I think, there could be a lot more enthusiasm, especially now when I think just making people aware of art is a good thing. And that, something like this could be fun for a while and for a long time, but I mean, it could be certainly something to kind of keep people's attention on the whole idea of, there's art right here in our community. Now, I had a question about cost. Is there any cost to put something like this together?
Yeah, and my understanding, so Trevor Magnuson from Parks and Recreation is going to cover the cost of this second adventure. And I had met with Kim virtually last month, and we had kind of just brainstormed ideas and then thought that you guys would be a good group to come to. So they're covering the cost of this adventure.
Okay. So, so it wouldn't cost us anything if we wanted to inject some arts
Nope.
stops in there. Okay. And then what is the process actually, say, once you determine where you want to put your geocaches, then I heard you say that you pour it into the bench. I mean, is it like something that's permanently mounted or buried, or how does that work?
That was an actual geocache. These are all virtual locations. So once we identify what we want to do, it's essentially just I build the back end of it on the website, and then I can send out test versions for anyone that wants to try it. But it's a pretty simple process once you identify the locations and then the content that you want associated with each one.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the examples Gia had given me to kind of make me think about it a little bit more was, so if we use one of the sidewalk art and poems, or for instance, one of the murals at ACE, you would go to the mural, it would direct the clue from the previous adventure, or wherever you start, your clue would say, go to this location, and you'd get there. And then once you look at the mural, it'll say maybe like, what's the number on the plane, or who is the author of the poem, and that will lead you to the next clue. And so it's like a tour of different destinations, and once you get to the next destination, you'll get the next clue for the next work of art or the next historic location. So we would be thinking about it in that way. If we identify, we'll go and use our Florin Klingensmith mural, then we would look there, and then that would lead you to the next clue, which might take you to the Dilly Bar at Dairy Queen, which might take you to the Bison at the Roar. And each place you would go there, and there would be some sort of visual clue that would be tied into the next destination. Is that correct, Gia?
And to kind of piggyback on that, the other thing that's cool is that you can add photos. So like in thinking about the work that's being done to revitalize kind of the downtown area, you could bring someone to the space outside the Moorhead Mall and talk about how historically that was kind of a gathering place. And then you could include a photo from the past and then maybe a rendering of what it would look like in the future. So it's like you're bringing people to a location, you can tell them about the history, and then like kind of make them see what could be there.
Any other comments or questions?
I was going to say, if you haven't looked at the video, like the huge geocache for a huge day of geocaching, the Fargo Moorhead Geo Tour Part 1, it's pretty informative. Gives you an idea what's going on.
Time and you want to test out an adventure just to kind of see how it works, I would highly recommend that. Like I said, there's 2 in downtown Fargo. There's one at Concordia, one at MB Johnson, and then Moorhead Parks and Recreation is a bunch of different locations.
Okay, anything else for Gia? Do we need to take any action on that? Kim?
Nope, this was just for information. If y'all think of anything after we meet, or your dinner conversations with your family, develop some suggestions, feel free to email me directly and we'll start working on what we can figure out. Just wanted to make sure that you are all in the know and could participate in any of the potential destinations.
All right. Well, I appreciate you taking the time, Gia, to come and visit with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, and this sounds exciting and something a little different and unusual at this time when we are just looking for something to stimulate our brains a little bit. So, so thanks to you, thanks Kim for making the arrangements in advance here too, and we'll be in touch with you later, Gia.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you so much.
Yep.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Gia.
Yep, bye.
Okay, so we move on to the next item on our agenda, which are some project updates on the I-94 Identity Water Tower Art and the Art Bench and Box project. And Kim, do you have some things to share with us on that?
Just a brief update. There's not too much information quite yet on either of these. They're still in process. So the Churchill group was selected out of 22 artists or artist groups from the call for art that you had looked at earlier. They have a comprehensive community engagement that they're working on. So they've got a Facebook page that hopefully you can all follow along and watch the process. And I'm not sure exactly how it'll all unfold, but there's been a survey to kind of collect ideas for what could or should represent our community to folks driving along the interstate. And so they are working on developing a preliminary art for the I-94 Water Tower group to review and comment, and then it'll become, I believe, some sort of Facebook announcement to kind of share and get some preliminary comments before it comes back to the Art and Culture Commission to follow the public art policy. So it'll come to you, it'll go to Moorhead Public Service for some review, and City Council as well, before that artwork would get approved and finalized. So still in process, but just wanted to give you an update.
All right, thank you.
City Council approved your recommendations for the student artwork for the benches and boxes. Our company, Custom Graphics, who submitted a proposal for us, is working on processing the original works of art and formatting it to each of the different, the little slats on the benches and all of the complexities with those utility boxes to make sure that all of those warning symbols and all the things that need to be visible are visible. And so I don't have a timeline yet as to when those things will be installed, but we'll hope to see those still while it's warm. And one of the city council members had recommended some sort of celebration or unveiling. So I don't know if anybody has any suggestions on what we could do to do a socially distant celebration, so to speak, of celebrating those works of art.
Put them in geocaching.
There you go.
Yeah, that might be, that's a good idea, actually. To have, you know, maybe like a mass unveiling on the same day, or, you know, obviously we don't want people gathering in those places, but, you know, to have some kind of indication that today's the day you're going to get to see where they are, or you're going to get to know where these benches are going to be. And, you know, it's we could have a press release. We could get folks into to get something like that out, and, you know, the newspapers and so on. I think that's a great idea.
I was also going to share with you that today the city has unveiled their Moorhead Cares grant program. Let me see. I might not be that great at sharing, but let me see if I can get it done. Can you see that? Oh, maybe not.
Yes.
I needed to go to the other tab. Is there a way to get the other tab to disappear? Oh, there it goes. How do I move the sharing tab over? Oh, there it goes. All right, now can you see it?
Yes.
All right, so at the URL, moorheadcares.com, the city received federal funding to help businesses that have been impacted by the pandemic. So starting today, small businesses with 20 employees or less, and community and nonprofit organizations that are a 501c3 or 501c19 might be eligible for grants up to $10,000 or up to $3,000. All of the details of eligibility are outlined on this website, as well as the button to apply. So I'm not sure exactly if any of you know businesses or different organizations that might qualify, but I encourage you all to review and seek this support if it's an option.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that. I know there probably is some interest in that in this group, and certainly in the arts world in Moorhead, hopefully. All right, thanks for sharing that. And any additional updates or reports from members today?
One thing I just recently posted online, actually this morning. If I thought I'd put this out with this group because folks have a lot of different fingers and a lot of different pies in this group. I direct a new group that was supposed to get started this fall called the Dragon Drum Line. That was supposed to get started but the football season is kaput, which was our main performance venue. So that said, we're literally got a group of students that are going to start rehearsing this music and looking for a place to perform in a very safe outdoor, socially distanced environment because nobody wants to get within 10 feet of a bunch of drummers anyways. So it's probably a safe thing to do. But if anybody knows of a charity event, of a like a fundraiser kickoff or something like that, or something, a public event that might be happening between the end of September and early November, so that month of October would be prime time, please give me a holler and let me know, or spread the word that we have a group of students that are looking to do a free 10-minute, we can make a lot of noise, march around sort of thing, or whatnot. So looking for ideas and looking for a place to give these kids a venue to do what they're practicing to do. So just want to put that out.
What is it? The Minnesota Rodeo, high school rodeo is still doing their thing. You might try reaching out to them. They were just in the forum just a couple days ago. So there was under a lot of protests because it's bringing people together, but the rodeo people who bring it all together decided to do it anyways. But that being said, you're in a big wide open arena. Drummers can throw their sticks all they want. They're not going to hit anybody, and there are spectators there to appreciate a drum line. So that's my 2 cents.
It's a possibility of a dedication for some benches.
Yeah.
That we could definitely do. Do we have a date for that again, Kim?
Nope, not yet.
Well, if it happens in October or late September, let me know. I could have something that would look nice on the news. And if they did start clustering together, we could just start playing loud and walking towards them. That'll spread them out pretty quick.
Anything else anybody has to share?
Yeah, Tim, I'd like to share something, and that is that thinking far ahead. Fargo Moorhead's going to have the sesquicentennial in 2024. And I think that this group ought to think of some big art thing that can maybe become permanent to celebrate that. And my idea was if we could get lights on the Main Avenue Bridge like they did down in I-35 in Minneapolis, something that would be permanent, celebrating 150 years. But so I'm throwing that idea. We got time to think about it, but it's, I'm throwing it out now. I'm on the city council, and a couple more months I may not be because I may be out of a job. But and the other thing is that we have a beautiful amphitheater down in Woodlawn Park, and it would be great if we could get some live acts there, not next summer, and just maybe, pushing the park board and getting some acts there. A couple summers ago, I saw I think it was just a lot of young people performing in Fargo in front of the Great Northern Bicycle Shop. Talk about talent in the town. It was just unbelievable. I thought, wow. And basically it was open mic night, so to get people down there. But anyway, 2 things to think about, a lot of time to think about it, but yeah.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else have anything to share? No? Okay. Well, Well, I appreciate all of your time today and participation in this meeting here. And we will move to adjourn here in a second, but let's make sure we have our next meeting date on the calendar, or has that already been set, Kim?
I believe it's been set, but I don't know. I should learn by now to write these numbers down, but it'll be the third Monday.
So the 21st of September. Okay, nothing else coming up here. We will adjourn today at 5:26. Thank you. We'll see you all next month, if not sooner.
Thank you.
Thank you.